Hello everyone, I am Heather. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Please be sure that you're subscribed to my channel. Today is the last video in the series that I have been doing where we rewatch one of my vlogs from before the pandemic and I give commentary on it. At the very beginning, I did one from when we went to the ice castles, and then I did a whole series from our Mariner of the Seas cruise in August of 2018, which was our last cruise. And now I have been doing a whole series of these from our Walt Disney World trip in March of 2019. This is the last vlog that I filmed on that trip. It was our last day. We actually flew home. Did we fly home that? Yeah, I think we actually flew home on the night after I filmed this. This was an interesting one because we ended up splitting up. Megan was old enough to enter the parks by herself, and she had some things that she wanted to do that she had not gotten to do at Hollywood Studios. But Ben and I didn't really want to go back to Hollywood Studios because we knew that we would not be able to ride anything that we really wanted to ride, mainly the stuff in like Toy Story Land, because the waits were too long and we didn't have any fast passes. So we split up. Megan went to Hollywood Studios and Ben and I went to EPCOT. So this video is kind of a fun one because that's a little bit different than the normal vlog you might see. And I hope that you enjoyed this vlog rewatch. All right, here we go. It starts out, we're still at Pop Century. Again, I had filmed a little bit of an intro when we were still in the room, and I'm not showing that part here. But this part was, we had checked our bags in with the airline or desk services. I don't know if they still have the airline service anymore, where you can check your bags in at your resort and they actually go straight to your plane from there. So we didn't even have to deal with our suitcases after that. And then they also were holding on to our backpacks, which we used as our carry-ons on the airplane, and those we had to go back and get. But that's where I'm picking this up from at the beginning of this video. And then we went around the corner to leave our backpacks, you know, our plane backpacks with luggage services, so they would hold them for the day. And the guy asked me my name, and I told him my last name. My last name is very simple, and I told him my last name and I spelled it, and he goes, he was from Chicago, and he goes, "Ma'am, if somebody can't spell that last name, you shouldn't trust them with your luggage." And then I told him my first name is Heather, and he said, "Even Heather, over here." He said, "If somebody can't spell that, don't leave your luggage with them," because, yeah, I thought that was funny. We got a laugh out of that one. We're now waiting for the Hollywood Studios bus. We just missed it. So we'll get the next one, which means we'll be king of the bus. King of the bus. Of the bus. King of the bus. King of the bus. Check out the driver's Wreckin' Ralph up there. And he told us when we got on that this is his first day driving a bus. I don't think he was serious. Okay, what we're doing there, if you don't watch the Tim Tracker, when he does resort tours for his channel, and if you can go back on Tim's channel and find all of his resort tours, he goes to Disney Springs, he parks at Disney Springs, because parking there is free, and then he takes one of the resort buses to the resort that he's going to film the tour of. And he likes to sit where we like to sit in the bus, which is all the way to the back, so you're facing forward in the direction that the bus is going. We really like those seats. Technically, we weren't king of the bus here because there are other passengers on the bus. But when you're sitting there and you're like the only person on the bus, Tim jokes that he's king of the bus. So that's what we were saying there, why we were chanting that. Woo! Puppy. Bye, Pop Century. Well, I guess we'll be back later. But bye to our room. Bye. Bye, room. I don't like it. Yeah, we didn't really like you, so. Bye, 90s building. I liked the bathroom. Yes. I liked the bathroom very much. The regular room I did not like. Here comes. If you want to hear in more detail what I thought of the room at Pop Century, I talked about it a lot in the intros and outros of each of these vlog videos, if you go back and watch them in their entirety, and I'll be sure to link this video in its entirety up here. But also I made, I think, 2 or 3 separate standalone videos where I talk all about Pop Century. I'll link one of them up above. I talked about it while we were there, and I also made at least one other video when we came back. I think I made one called The Truth About Pop Century. I made one about why I do not recommend value resorts for families. And the main reason for that is size of the room. And I also made a video when we got back from this trip that was 3 lessons I learned on this trip. And I can remember what they were. The 3 lessons I learned was not to go when the crowd calendar is red, because it was so crowded, which it was on this trip. Not to get the Disney dining plan, because after I did the math, and I talk about that extensively in that video, because after I did the math, we came out so much better by not getting the Disney dining plan. But you have to do the math and figure it out for your own family to see which is better for you. And then the 3rd lesson I had learned from this trip that I talked about in that video was not to stay at a value resort again. The only way I would stay at a value resort again is to stay at Art of Animation in a family suite. But as I talked about in the previous vlog rewatch video where we walked from Pop Century to Art of Animation is not really a value resort. The Little Mermaid section of Art of Animation is value. The rest of Art of Animation is something between a moderate and a deluxe when you look at the pricing. So I would consider staying there in one of those suites if I could afford it. And then I would also consider staying in one of the remodeled rooms like what we had at Pop Century, or the ones that are now fully remodeled at All-Star Movies, but only if it was all 4 of us going, me, Andrew, Megan, and Ben, and we got 2 rooms. So like the girls were in a room and the boys were in a room. That's the only way I would stay at a value again. Or if I was by myself, because then it'd be very spacious for just me. Comes the boat. Megan is inside Hollywood Studios. She got in with no problem. And she's going to get on a single rider line for Rockin Roller Coaster, even though the wait right now is 135 minutes. It's a beautiful day, so I imagine the parks are going to be busy. And we're going to time it and see how long this boat ride takes, so we know when to leave to come back. Okay, if you don't understand the logistics of what we did here, Hollywood Studios and EPCOT are quite close together. There's currently 5 ways you can get between them. 1, you could drive in your own car. 2, you could take the buses. Yeah, I think you could take a bus. 3, you can now take the Disney Skyliner. You couldn't do that yet at this time because it wasn't open yet, but you can take the Disney Skyliner between EPCOT and Hollywood Studios. You do have to change gondola cars at Caribbean Beach Resort, but you can do it. And then another way, you can walk there. You can walk between Hollywood Studios and EPCOT. It's a pretty long walk, but there are pathways along this waterway here. This is an artificially man-made canal, waterway, lake system that's built here. It's made up of this little waterway here in front of Hollywood Studios, and then it goes under a highway and like a little artificial canal that they built. It's in front of the Swan and Dolphin resorts, and then it's Crescent Lake in front of the EPCOT area resorts, which is Yacht Club, Beach Club, and the Boardwalk. Those are, by the way, if you want to stay in a deluxe resort and be very close to EPCOT, like you're going to go to a festival like really a lot, I highly recommend any of those 3 resorts because you can walk to EPCOT from those. What we did here on this day, and we did it, I think, another day too, we took the bus from Pop Century to Hollywood Studios, and then Megan went into Hollywood Studios, and then Ben and I got on the boat and took the boat to EPCOT, which is very convenient. And then we spent the time at EPCOT, and then when Megan told us she was done with what she wanted to do at Hollywood Studios, we got back on the boat, came back to Hollywood Studios, met back up, and then took the bus back to Pop Century to collect our bags and take the Magical Express back to the airport. And here's Ben. Not doing an entirely another food review because we're at Sunshine Seasons, and I got exactly the same stuff I got last time I was here because it was so good. I got the stir-fried shrimp with fried rice, and the key lime tart, and Ben got the kids. He got slightly different. Last time he got pasta.
Yeah.
Today he got the mac and cheese with an applesauce and a cookie, and he wanted frosted flakes for some reason, so there you go. And he got his same Oreo chocolate mousse because it was really good. So Megan is over at Hollywood Studios, and she just got off Rockin Roller Coaster, and she says she had a heart attack and died. And her vocal cords broke, but the picture is really great.
Hello everyone, it's Megan. I'm sitting just off of Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood Studios. I just got off of Rockin Roller Coaster a few minutes ago. Mom and Heather and Ben went to EPCOT today, and since I'm 14 I can go into the park by myself, so I went back to Hollywood Studios. So I just got off of Rockin Roller Coaster. I was pretty nervous waiting in line, but it was actually pretty fun. The guy behind me in line was looking up statistics of the ride and reading them to his friends. One of them was that the ride in the first 2.8 seconds went from 0 to 60 miles per hour. Yeah, I can definitely believe that. Honestly, if I was to describe it, it felt like my soul was being ruptured from my body, so that was fun. Anyway, now I'm enjoying a Mickey pretzel with cheese just off of Sunset Boulevard. And I will be going on Tower of Terror. I have a fast pass for this afternoon.
I have to say, I'm really proud of her that she did this. I probably would have done it when I was that age too, but she was 14 at the time. You have to be 14 to enter a park by yourself. I mean, Disney World is a safe place to do this, I would say, but separated from her right at the gates and watched her go in through the security and the gate into Hollywood Studios. So I knew she was in there. And we were obviously in touch by cell phone and everything. And we use the Life 360 app on our phones so that we always know where each other are. We can see where we are. By the way, teenagers like that more than you think they would. My kids really appreciate being able to see where I am. Like if I go somewhere in the car, or like when Megan used to be in theater and rehearsal would be done and she'd be waiting for me to come pick her up, she liked being able to see how far away is mom and when is she going to get here. So they actually do appreciate that. My kids aren't doing anything wrong where they need to be hiding where they're going anyway. She's talked about this in other videos. She's very introverted. She doesn't really like to talk to people and stuff, but she would have had to do that here. She would have had to talk to people as she went into the park. She would have had to talk to people to order her food. And she's very capable and she's very independent. She has talked about that in videos before too. So this was just really cool for her that she could do this by herself. She actually stopped and took some really cool pictures with a PhotoPass photographer too. She got some great shots from when she was at Hollywood Studios by herself. Ben and I are going on Finding Nemo again. This is one of my favorite queues because it's like you're at the beach. Oh, except I don't know if we go through that part. I think you only go through that on the standby line. And then you go under the water. Still kind of neat over here. Ooh. That is one small disadvantage to FastPass. A lot of the queues for Walt Disney World attractions are very elaborate. They're very themed and they're really neat, and there's some interactive elements to a lot of them. And some of that stuff is shut off right now because of the pandemic and they don't want people touching stuff. But in normal times, some of the queues for rides at Walt Disney World are really, really neat and almost just as good as the ride itself. But when you go through the FastPass line, you skip all that. I still think it's worth it to get on the ride faster. I would rather be able to skip the line and go on the FastPass. But if the queue isn't terrible, I do enjoy going through some of the themed queues for attractions at Walt Disney World. wrong with my eyes in the future?
Now we're on Spaceship Earth.
So technology will help you live better.
What's wrong with my eyes? What's happened to me?
If you're not familiar with this, when you ride Spaceship Earth, which is the one in the big ball, it takes your picture and it uses it for these in the ride. It shows you your own faces in the ride and it puts them in these interactive elements. You actually get to make choices on the screen in your little vehicle that you're riding in about things in the future, and then it puts your faces in the little story in the future. And we were laughing here because something happened when the picture took and my eyes didn't show up, so it looks like I don't have any eyes.
This just in. Looks like it's going to be a great, big, beautiful tomorrow. The end. Or should I say,
what's wrong with my eyes?
of your future.
You're creepy sucker.
Creepy possessed.
Ladies and gentlemen, our time travels have been momentarily delayed.
Okay, we kept, on this particular ride, near the end, we kept stopping. Now, a lot of the reason that rides will stop, especially when it's a continuous loader, like both the Finding Nemo ride and Spaceship Earth are, where it's going along on it's almost like a moving sidewalk in an airport, and it just continuously moves. What happens a lot of time, it's not that the ride has broken down, it's that they have to stop that movement to load or unload someone who is in a wheelchair or a scooter, you know, like an ECV vehicle. So it's not that anything's wrong with the ride, it's that they manually stopped that continuous movement so that they could help someone get on the ride. I will say, as much as I really appreciate how well Walt Disney World accommodates people with lots of kinds of disabilities, food allergies, all of that stuff, they're very, very good about that. Disney Cruise Line is too with food. That can be quite disruptive. That whole loading and unloading, and we really noticed it on this trip because it happened so much. It kind of destroys the magic, if you will. It kind of takes away from the magic of the ride experience. I generally really like those continuously loading dark rides, but when they have to stop and then you have to sit there for a while and then 4 seconds later it stops again, it really does get kind of annoying. And, you know, it's not the people's fault they need help getting on the ride, but I mean, it does kind of ruin it a little bit. How do you guys feel about that?
Please remain seated. Your time machine vehicle will begin moving again at any moment. Please remain seated. We'll resume our journey shortly. Thank you.
That we'll take and make together. See you
Please remain seated. Your vehicle will begin moving immediately.
Ben and I just rode Spaceship Earth. Oh, there's the monorail.
That monorail is currently not going at Walt Disney World. That's the EPCOT monorail that connects Magic Kingdom to EPCOT, and they're not using that one right now because they ran into some physical spacing issues for the boarding on the EPCOT end, I think, and so they're just not running that monorail at all right now.
And we rode Test Track one last time. And then we are heading back now to the boat to go back to Hollywood Studios to meet Megan. Megan got to ride Tower of Terror, Rockin Roller Coaster, and Star Tours. And Andrew is at the airport right now in Minneapolis, getting on a plane to South Padre Island. Nope. Oh, yes, he is. He's on the plane. So Andrew's on a plane to South Padre Island.
So that's a consequence of my kids having different spring breaks. Our spring break at our schools here were this week, and we were at the end of it. But Andrew's spring break from college, this was his senior year of college, right before he graduated, was the week after. So we couldn't take a trip together because Andrew, for 3 of the 4 years he was in college, was an RA, a residence life assistant, you know, so he was in charge of a section of people in the dorms. And so he could not take time off of school when school was in session. He could only travel when it was an actual break. The way he did his 2 J-term study abroads was he could only do the J-term ones. He couldn't do a whole semester study abroad because he was an RA. So we were mentioning there that as we were heading to the airport to fly home to Minneapolis, Andrew had just gotten on a plane to leave Minneapolis, and he went to South Padre Island in Texas with some of his friends for his spring break. So that's, you know, ships passing in the night, if you will.
And I think we're gonna go through here. So yeah. Waiting for Megan to go back into Hollywood Studios again because she needs to exchange that shirt for Ben, which she bought was way too small. And oh, there's ducks flying by. Somebody is skywriting.
Something.
True. They gotta write faster because the T and the R and the U are already blowing away. I think it's gonna say true.
Oh, they did it backwards.
Or it's an S? Trust?
Trust, yeah.
I'll spare you the suspense. It actually ended up saying trust Jesus, and apparently these people skywrite, you know, spiritual type sayings in the sky above Walt Disney World all the time. I wasn't aware of that.
It went from 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 3 feet.
3 feet?
Yes.
Oh my
Okay,
gosh.
maybe 10 feet, I don't know. But it was, when you were stopped, you were dead stopped. You were stopped there for like 30 seconds. And then suddenly you were on the track going 60 miles per hour.
Okay, I have discovered a design flaw in the Sky car. The Skyliner. See that flash?
Whoa!
That's an
It
unwrapped
is so bright.
Skyliner gondola car. And look at how when it hits the sun, it's a blinding flash of light that blinds you. Look at that. Car accident or something. Watch this. To catch it one more time. There's another one. See that one over there? When they're not wrapped. Look at that. Look at that. That's dangerous.
It's the windows.
But I mean, the car's driving below it, that's going to blind people.
You're not going to look up.
Sure you will.
Okay, now this is interesting to me because I definitely thought this was a real issue. And I'm wondering if they did something to the outside of the gondola cars because I've never heard anything about that being a problem. And I've never seen it in anybody else's vlogs from Walt Disney World since the Skyliner opened. So does anybody know? Because this was definitely an issue. Did they do something to the outside of the Skyliner gondola cars to make it so they didn't reflect like that? Or what? Because I was really concerned about this when I saw that because that is an incredibly blinding flash of light. But I've never heard anything about it since or about it being a problem. So if you know anything about this, please put it in the comments below.
We just took the bus back from Hollywood Studios to Pop Century and we had a very negative experience. We waited at Hollywood Studios for over 30 minutes for a bus. There was a huge line of people waiting. And just like last night, 2 buses came back to back. But when the first one pulled up this time, instead of pulling up behind it to get the rest of the people, the second bus turned its light off and went around and just left. And so everybody did not fit, and a whole bunch of people got left behind. And the people that were on, including us, got crammed in there like sardines. He kept forcing more and more people onto the bus. I almost wonder if those last group of people that didn't get on refused to get on because it was so cramped. I don't blame them. I didn't want to get on, but we were already late to get back here to the resort. And then that bus driver was awful. He was telling all these jokes the whole way back, and they ranged from grown-worthy puns to actually inappropriate, like not appropriate for children or families, like not funny at all. And he was blatantly like trying to get cast compliments. He was even telling people how to hashtag cast compliment. And I'm like, can I do hashtag cast critique? Because I was really annoyed.
Some guy from the back called, what's your last name?
Yeah.
Called, what's your last name? And I'm pretty sure it's so that he can give you that.
Right, because that was very upsetting. That was not what I expect from Disney, and that was not a very positive way to end our experience here. I mean, we're still here at Pop Century. We got to eat and get our bags and take the Magical Express, but that was very upsetting. And I don't know Yet another reason why we do not like Pop Century. It's always the last bus of the bus pickup at the parks. It's the farthest away that you have to walk. Once in a while, part of animation will be one stop farther, but that's the farthest you have to walk. And for some reason, the buses just don't come. Like everybody else comes and gets picked up. Yeah, these past 2 days, we've waited like 30, 40 minutes for a bus to come. And I was getting really nervous because we needed to be back here by 5 at the latest, and we did not get picked up until 5 at Hollywood Studios. And it's very close, but still, that made me, I was like this close to calling a minivan or a Lyft or an Uber or something. So that, thumbs down on whoever that bus driver was. I wish I would have got his name too. And not good, Disney. We're not pleased with that at all.
I was obviously really upset by this experience. I still remember that. I mean, there were 3 things that happened there that we were very unhappy about. One was that there were, and this was true every time. I mean, I don't know, like for capacity wise of the resort, or if there were just, because it was spring break, or there were just a lot more people staying at Pop Century or whatever. But the Pop Century bus lines were always very long, and the buses just took an extraordinarily long time to arrive. And you were waiting a long time at the resort. You were waiting a long time at the parks to go back to the resort. And what I said there was, in the placement of the bus stops at the parks, the deluxes always have the nice closest spots, and then the moderates have the next closest, and then the value resorts have the stops that are farthest away. So if you're staying in a value resort, be prepared to do more walking because you have to walk farther away from like the park entrance to get the bus back to your resort. And there would always be so many people waiting, at least these last couple of days. And then 2 buses came at the same time, both for Pop Century. And there were more people waiting to get on a bus than could fit on one bus. So in my mind, that second bus should have also let people get on. They should have filled the first bus and then let people get on the second bus. But instead, the second bus drove away. And so the bus driver of the first bus was trying to cram as many people in. And I feel like that's got to be such a safety issue. You know, I don't like the way, they're not doing that now because of the pandemic, but I do not like the way in normal times that Disney will just, it's like a Tokyo subway. People pushing more and more people on, trying to fill every square inch of air in the inside of those buses to get as many people on as possible. I don't think that's safe, and it's definitely not comfortable. And I don't like that they do that. And that's one thing that I hope that they'll keep after the pandemic, even if it means they have to run more buses or run them more often. To me, it's so much nicer if everybody can sit down, at least if you're standing, not to have people like just crammed right up to you and squished on all sides of you and not be able to move at all. It's awful. And then that cast member who was driving that bus, he was blatantly fishing for a cast compliment, and he was telling these really horrible jokes, and they were not good jokes. They were almost mocking things about Disney. I remember they were almost making fun of the characters and things like that, and it was not cool at all. It wasn't funny. It was really obnoxious, and I was really put out, and like I really just wanted him to shut up because he was making the bus ride very unpleasant. We were already crammed in there like sardines. And I definitely got the impression from the people very closely packed around me that other people felt the same way I did. And the way he was just, it was like he wanted to get cast compliments. Like that was his whole goal because it made him cool. And I don't like that at all. I mean, to me, when you give a cast compliment to a cast member at Disney, it's because they just naturally were extra kind or went out of their way or did something nice or whatever. Not because they were trying to get the cast compliment. I mean, that's not the idea behind it at all. So that was just a very negative thing for us for our last time coming back from a park to the resort. On our last day of our trip, we were not happy about that at all.
Hello friends, we are at the Orlando International Airport waiting to board our flight, and so this brings us to the end of our vlogs of our vacation to Walt Disney World 2019. Ben is very excited to go home because he loves home. Megan and I are not. We want to move to Florida and not have to go home to the slush and yuck that awaits us, and school that Megan doesn't like this year, and yeah. So thank you for joining us for these vlogs, and we hope to be traveling again somewhere soon so that we have more to share with you. And I hope these were helpful to you and that we gave you some helpful tips. Safe travels.
That is so funny that I said we hope to be traveling somewhere soon. That brings up something I often think about. It's really hard for me. How many of you feel this way? I don't like it when I don't have the next trip booked. I like to have the next trip booked after a trip ends. After a vacation ends, I want to know what the next one's going to be, and I want that to be booked. I'm kind of in that position right now. And at this time, when we went on this trip, we did not know what the next trip was going to be. And that leaves me feeling very sad and not just unhappy. This is the last time we flew anywhere. I was filming that from the airport, and that was the last time we flew on a plane. We have not flown on a plane since then. That was March of 2019, so that was over 2 years ago since we've flown on a plane anywhere. We don't plan on flying until Ben gets vaccinated. We did go on at least, well, I think we went to Wisconsin Dells this summer of 2019. And then we also went on our trip up north to northern Minnesota and Lake Superior, which was really cool actually in the fall. That was really neat. We did that in October. But then we didn't go anywhere all through the winter of 2019, 2020, and then the pandemic hit. And so we were kind of on hold there for a while until we did decide to travel during the summer of 2020 when cases were pretty low and we felt it was relatively safe. And then we didn't travel again until we went to Chicago in March of 2021, which was just a quick trip. And yeah, so the pandemic messed things up, but also just for me, it's always kind of a money issue. I'm always in the situation where I don't have enough money all at once to have things booked. And so that's a frustration for me. I'd really like to get to the point where I can always have the next trip already booked when one trip ends. So we have something else to look forward to after a vacation ends. How many of you feel that way? Please give me a thumbs up down below if you enjoyed this video. And again, please be sure that you're subscribed to my channel. I hope that you enjoyed this series of vlog rewatches. I've got a whole playlist of it I'll probably add to the homepage of the channel now that I've finished all of these. It's kind of fun to go back and rewatch things again because there's things you don't remember. It's neat to see, you know, even how the kids grew in that time. And I really enjoyed adding additional commentary and information, which I hope is helpful to you if you're planning a trip to, you know, on a cruise or Walt Disney World or whatever. So thanks again for watching, everyone, and safe travels.